Hello and welcome to the agenda on Politics Social with me and Phil Moorhouse. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me, Graham Hughes. I should say my name, shouldn't I? Welcome to Katrina and Benjamin and Hey and Buds and One Angry Pagan and lots of other awesome people. If you would like to join them in the chat and have your say, just hit the subscribe button now, wait for 30 seconds and you'll be able to join in the conversation. So we're going to be talking about Space Karen today, aren't we?
Yes.
How did you describe it before we came on air? A portal to hell has opened and a load of right-wing gobshites have spewed forth.
That's what's like. I mean, the news is all sorts of various right-wing populism at the moment. It's just full of it.
Yes.
So New Year lasted, the festive period lasted a few hours, and now they are determined to turn the UK into even more of a cesspit in 2025.
Yes. Trumpia Arabia. Saudi Trumpia. Does that work? Don't know. But a lot of the money that's going into these, mysteriously funded think tanks and, mysteriously funded space Karens seems to come from one country and one country alone, which is Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Keep making this point. So what's new? He's registered this company, hasn't he?
So I mean, in terms of the background, there's rumours, and it's only rumours. I don't think he's come out and said it directly. There are rumours that he's willing to give $100 million to Reform UK. This would be about £80 million, which, I keep reminding people, for British politics is a lot of money. It's more money than all of the political parties put together spent during the general election campaign. It would have, $100 million, you wouldn't wipe your ass with it in American politics, but in British politics, you will notice the impact. If they suddenly got 80 million quid to spend, even over the next few years, they would notice it.
Yeah.
But the question has always been because Musk can't legally give Reform UK that money because he's foreign. He doesn't live in the UK. He's a foreign national. So how does an illegal immigrant give Nigel Farage $100 million? And you could look at his companies. So like, the UK version of Twitter or X, whatever. I mean, we don't know what its profits are because he stopped them being publicly reported when he took it over. But in 2021, it was about £7 million. And obviously, we know Twitter's financial position has substantially declined since then. So there's not going to be much profit. He can't just, get his UK Twitter-based operation to give him more. I mean, you could give him a few million. That's still a lot for an operation like from UK, but it's not loads. Tesla, I don't know about because, again, I don't know what their profits are. I don't think they report them publicly. However, people have noticed that last month, Elon Musk registered a completely new company called X.AI London Ltd, which is intended, it describes itself, I look on Companies House, as business and domestic software development and other information technology service activities. Now, Elon Musk, like a lot of tech billionaires, is, of course, investing heavily in AI. And obviously, this company is called X.AI. So it's clearly going to be developing AI solutions for the future. And he's got billions of dollars worth of money for this. So what if he just intends on having this UK-based company, which at the moment can't donate to Reform UK because it can't have any profits. It's only just been set up. It doesn't even have anyone working for it. Like the only people named on Companies House are Elon Musk as the person with the controlling interest and a director who is based in the United States. So, we don't even know it's got employees yet. But if he decides to use this company to develop software for his backers and funnels basically billions of dollars worth of investment towards it, then they may be able to post profits that are large enough for him to donate £80 million to Reform UK in a year or two. I don't know how quickly it's feasibly done.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the profits.
So
you saw the profits that these companies made that were started in May 2020 to supply the government. Well, to supply no one with anything that worked.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money very quickly through dodgy government contracts, but they won't have that opportunity. But You know, you're talking about Companies House. We should do a whole deep dive into Companies House and how it's run. It's basically the laundromat for the world. You know, we talk about offshore accounting and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, the biggest laundromat for money in the world is Companies House. It's unbelievably
there are some
bad at what it
properties.
does.
There are some properties in London that are actually, because I looked up anyway. So there's an address for this. It is actually a building in London, an office block. So the fact that a company would be based there is not actually that unusual. There are loads of companies based there, and it looks like the sort of place that has offices, right? It's an office block. But there are some properties in London where you look on Google Maps and it's just a house that is also the registered address for dozens of Chinese companies.
Dozens,
like
hundreds of companies.
So it is utterly ridiculous.
They don't check at all, Phil.
No.
They don't check. This is the maddening thing. Like anything else you do in life, even if you want to get a Blockbuster card, going back a bit, you had to produce ID and prove who you were, right? Yeah. You don't have to do that to set up a company. No. You just give them a name, you give them an address. That's it. You don't have to give them your social, your NI number.
All sorts of things that have fallen back. Like Tommy Robinson at the moment is in a bit of tax trouble because he kept setting up companies, diverting his profits towards them, then moving that money somewhere else and then declaring insolvency. And some of these companies hadn't actually published tax returns for years. And this is, of course, illegal. You have to publish tax returns. You can't just say, oh, no, we didn't make any money. Even then, you have to still fill in a tax return. And how it's possible for anyone who's actually registered with Companies House to just not publish a tax return without HMRC immediately being on it is beyond me.
Yeah, but you get like a fine for not submitting your tax returns, but it's a fraction. It's like pennies, honestly, Phil. It like if you're a multi-million-pound net worth individual because you're a drug dealer or a people trafficker, Companies House is the way to do it. It's so badly run, and if we're talking about these sort of collection of taxation and stuff like that, the government needs to get onto Companies House and have a look at how it operates, because I think it's completely out of order. The only difference that's happened in the last few years is they've brought in a thing where you've got to make a statement every year just to say that you've got the same directors and the same secretaries, or that's it. And you are supposed to put in these tax returns for people to see, but also you can do things like put a dodgy address down and also abbreviated accounts, so no one knows what the money, where it came from or where it's going, or where it went. Sorry, and it is just a ludicrous system that benefits the cheats. And this is something that David Mitchell said this on a show a couple of years ago, and he was talking about how the system benefits. It gives rewards to people for doing the most immoral thing, like avoiding the correct amount of tax that they're supposed to pay. They get rewarded for that. And we live in a society where you expect to get rewarded for doing good things, but we actually reward people for doing evil things.
Yeah.
Donald Trump. But do you see Labour doing anything about this? I mean, this has been the frustration.
This is the worry. Like, so when the threat had already emerged, like even before this company was incorporated, like there was already the rumour that $100 million would be finding its way towards Reform UK. And Labour have put in the manifesto they're going to tighten up the law. But there's two things we don't know. First of all, exactly how, I mean, like I would get rid of all foreign money. And I don't care if it's a UK-based subsidiary. Like if the ownership of that business is outside the UK, it shouldn't be able to donate to British politics. And you can make an argument, but, it's affected by, British political decisions. So it's like, so they can have a say. So the director of that company can have its say. It can write a piece for the Financial Times, but it can't donate any money. And also, if we're going to use the argument that because these businesses are affected by policies in the UK and so should be able to engage in British politics, then by the same token, everyone living in the UK should be able to vote in the general election as well, because they're also affected.
Well,
I would get rid of all foreign money.
People living in the UK weren't allowed to vote in the referendum if they were from the EU countries, but they were if they were from Canada or Tuvalu.
Yeah, or Bali.
No, not
Actually,
Bali.
no, I think that came later on.
That's part of
Anyway.
Indonesia.
No, but I think they can vote now.
No, not Bali.
Is it not?
No, that's part of Indonesia. That was a duchy
Yes, but
place.
even so, is it just part of the Commonwealth?
No, Indonesia's not part of the Commonwealth. No, it was a duchy place. It was a Dutch.
What am I thinking of? Anyway, it doesn't matter. The
Mali?
The other thing we don't know is when they're going to do it. What we do know is it's not going to be this year. Now, all we know is it's later this Parliament. So this year's legislation is basically the stuff that was in the King's Speech. So all the stuff that's currently going through Parliament, it's all that big stuff on planning and workers' rights and things. That's what's going through right now. Now, that should finish in time for the autumn. Now, they've already suggested that they might then start to introduce legislation like Lucy Powell was talking about giving 16 and 17-year-olds the vote. So that could suggest that their mind is on various things around elections, which could include this. But if they only start to, we don't know what they're going to do. Like in terms of giving 16 and 17-year-olds the vote, once this current session of Parliament's done, they start a new one in, let's say, late autumn.
Yeah,
they can just introduce that bill. That's easy because we know what they're going to do. We're going to give 16 and 17-year-olds a vote. But when it comes to tightening up the law on political donations, they haven't even held the review yet. So Labour themselves don't know what they're going to do. They haven't started the process of the review. So you're going to be talking 2 or 3 years before, because you've got to decide what you're going to do. Then you've got to present a bill to Parliament. Then you've got to get it passed. Then you've got to give an implementation period, which hopefully won't be too long, but still there will be one. So, you could be talking quite a long time. And I worry that Labour see advantage or they don't. I think there's 2 issues that, and this is my speculation, I don't know this because they don't invite me to meetings, but there's 2 issues that I can see. The first is that we're about to get a very volatile US president, and Musk is one of his top advisors, right?
For now, Phil. For now.
But this is the problem.
Until they fall out spectacularly.
He is one of his top advisors. So Keir Starmer so far has basically been ignoring Elon Musk, which has been enraging him. If he decides to aggressively cockblock him, then that's like a bit of friction with Trump. And Trump already mistrusts Labour. He mistrusts anyone who's basically to the left of Hitler. So, so there's that side of it. Are they afraid? Basically, are they afraid of pissing off Trump? The second aspect is I can see how maybe Labour strategists underestimate the danger because they're focusing on what Reform UK can do in the election, which is hurt the Tories more than them. And it's a first past the post system. Whereas I think they should think a little bit more about the long-term damage, because this money, it's not about the election. This money is going to be used to target disinformation at vulnerable people, just Cambridge Analytica style.
Yeah. And
that causes a lot of damage. There are already things that Labour are having to do now that it knows are not the best policies, particularly on immigration type issues. But because of the public views, you can't go too far against public opinion. Although they don't seem to care about that in terms of other policies at the moment. But so the damage that that £80 million worth of disinformation can do to a country.
Yeah.
And I just think the fact that they're not prioritizing it, there must be a reason. It could be they're just trying not to piss off Trump, and they're just waiting for Musk to have a falling out so that once he's no longer in Trump's inner circle, then they can go after him. Or the fact that they actually don't see too much danger for them personally in Reform UK getting this money, because they'll mostly crush the Tories with it. Yes, they're gonna pull Labour votes as well, and they may well even win some Labour seats.
Yeah,
but it's going to hurt the Tory vote more.
Yeah, indeed it is. Did you read Ian Dunt's piece in the I newspaper about on the I website, I guess, about Keir Starmer and about how he triumphed over populism by just being pragmatic and just getting the shit done that needed to be done, just letting them sort of talk about what they wanted to talk about, and then pointing out that they weren't very good at delivering what they said. Do you think that given the amount of criticism we've seen, towards Keir Starmer. We were expecting it from the right-wing press, we were expecting it from the butthead Corbynites, but it does seem like no one's particularly happy with Keir Starmer at the moment. Do you think he knows? Do you think he's got a plan to do something about it?
Oh, he's got a plan. His plan is that I am going to deliver these improvements to people's lives and then everyone will be cool with me. But the problem with that is the media will instantly, if there's any improvements, just say it's actually something the Tories did or just happened naturally or something like that.
Yeah.
What you need to do is say, these are the improvements, these specific improvements I am going to deliver. And you have to keep on at it. It's all right doing that speech with those 6 milestones or whatever the hell they were a couple of weeks ago. But you have to keep on at it. That way, when they appear, you can say, the people will think, oh, well, the government said they were going to do this and now they've done it. So that link, because he's assuming people will see the link between improvements in their lives and what the government have done, whereas they may not. Yeah. Remember, the people did not always see the link between the worsening of their living standards and what the government were doing. So why would they see the link between improvements?
Well, exactly, unless you point it out to them, hammer them over the head with it every day, which is what Labour should be doing. But their comms.
Where Starmer, I think, goes right and wrong when it turns to the media. So a lot of the stuff, like people close to him say that he describes a lot of this nonsense in the media as just noise. And it's like, so it is good because we have had prime ministers in the past who every morning get the newspaper head and they decide to measure their success by whether the headlines are kind to them or not. And you don't do that. You should absolutely ignore particularly the legacy media. However, what you can't do is ignore the effect it has on the public. So you still have to counter it. You don't have to hang on every word that's written in the media, but you do need to, where something is going to be, you need to keep a close eye on how it's affecting public opinion, and where it is, you need to come out, like all this stuff on the grooming gangs at the moment.
Well, they're trying to push. I was going to come on to this about, it's a bit rich of Kemi Badenoch to be talking about this at the moment, because considering like they did nothing about it. You should do this thing that we didn't do.
Well, the thing is as well, they did. Like she said, there should be a full independent inquiry.
There was.
There was. And do you know what? Going back, and I did a video on it, but I didn't go through all the details. So what happened was this inquiry was launched in 2015. It was a big one. It didn't report till 2022, cost millions of pounds. But 2015, what was happening in 2015? Well, a few years before, is when a certain director of public prosecutions blew the lid on the whole thing by not only organising the first major prosecutions of grooming gangs, but also changed the way the CPS operates in order to make charges more likely in future as well. So Keir Starmer, he wasn't the only one, there were a lot, but Keir Starmer was one of the people who did as much as anyone to really start the ball rolling on chasing after the grooming gangs. And as a consequence of that, a couple of years later, the government decided to launch an investigation into it. It reported, and then the government, the Conservative government, did nothing with the recommendations. And Kemi Badenoch at the time was Women's and Equalities Minister, and obviously this would have been, I don't think she would have been the minister chiefly responsible for this. That would be someone in the Home Office. But she should have had an interest in it, surely. Well, given that most of the victims are women and girls.
Yeah, but she was too busy bullying people and belittling people for being minorities.
Kemi Badenoch saying, there should be an inquiry. Like, Keir Starmer should come right out, shouldn't wait for PMQ, should come right out and say, your party commissioned it. It was published when you were a minister, you did nothing with it. And as for this, Alicia Kearns has come out writing a letter saying about the Oldham inquiry. You should refer to your decision on that should be an Oldham inquiry. And it's like, well, there's various reasons why it's not for the Westminster government to order that. But also, the Conservative government knocked that on the head as well, because people were asking for that when they were in power and they said, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
And now, and again, it's just shameless politics. It's absolutely shameless politics that they're, in government they behaved one way and in opposition all of a sudden it's the other. But yeah, the report exists. Keir Starmer should come out, say, the Conservatives are calling for this full independent inquiry into it. So you may have been reading in the newspaper, it's all on the front pages of some of them. So I would come out with a public statement. Oh, you may have heard about this thing. So here's what we're going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to order a new inquiry just yet. What I'm going to do is click on this page here where there's the reports to the independent inquiry that took place at the cost of millions of pounds to the taxpayer. And I'm going to read you out some of the key points in it. Because the reason why the populists want a different one is because it did not give them the results they wanted.
How many of these shows is just going to be, here's what Labour comms should do?
Wow.
It's what we talk about every week, Phil. It is so frustrating. Like, it seems so obvious to you. It seems so obvious to me. I'm sure it seems pretty obvious to everyone watching this. Like, why can't they just get it in order? Why is there no one there who's like the person pointing out that they need to do better with this, and this is the way to go about it? And when it's such an open goal like this, where all they need to do is come out and they can use this as an attack line against the Tories, against the right-wing press. Oh, again, it's the right-wing press owned by foreign billionaires who don't even live here, you know, to discredit our party.
This is something that Badenoch is trying to use as a stick to beat Starmer with. And yet it's something where he can embellish his reputation again, because he was literally the prosecutor that said, yes, we're going ahead with these prosecutions. Yeah. And, you know, then there's not enough of these charges being brought. I'm going to change things to make sure more charges get brought.
Yeah. Nick in Diff says Labour need to do regular broadcasts to the public, debunking lies said about them and talk positively about what they are doing. MPs need to be seen and heard, sending out positive messages constantly. Yes, but they aren't. It's so disjointed. And when we gave them the opportunity and said, we'll set up Labour Social and you can come on it and you can tell your positive stories, but we'll keep it ticking, you know, day to day. We'll make sure that we keep viewers coming in. We'll be putting content, 1 or 2 pieces or even 3 pieces of content out every single day, whether you're on it or not. And they just weren't interested. They just were not interested. And they were like, well, we only really do things like that when there's an election on. And so for the election, they set up a TikTok account for the first time, and they were quite good, like the stuff that they did for the TikTok campaign. But when it's not an election, they just don't seem to consider. And the thing is, you've got 2 things here. First of all, when Trump lost, when he won the first election that he won in 2016, on the 20th of January 2017, he started his re-election bid. From that very moment, he started his re-election bid. He actually registered his new PAC, which is the way that they raise money in America, his new super PAC, on the day he was inaugurated. And the Conservatives do this all the time. They make sure they're always in the public eye. They make sure they're always driving the narrative. They make sure that the newspaper headlines connect to them in some way, whether it's good or bad. They don't care. But Labour just seem to want, you know, the results to speak for themselves. But there's no results, and there aren't going to be any results for a few years. And, you know, you're right when you say, well, people don't notice when their life gets worse. You know, the old boiling frog analogy. Are they going to notice when their life gets better? And I say no, especially when Labour are pushing for, well, not pushing for, but, you know, including stuff in the budget that really got my back up, like... Not the farmers having to pay inheritance tax. I couldn't care about that. But the fact that they put up the cap from £2 to £3 for the bus. That is a regressive tax that is going to affect the poorest in society the most. It just is. Like, rich people don't get the fucking bus. God damn it. And it's something that you see every day. You would see it every day. I know you're saying, oh, but they'll get a weekly bus pass. But the way that a lot of people work with part-time jobs and the gig economy, it's not always that routine. It's not always that regular. So yeah, I think that would be a demonstrable difference that people would see in their everyday lives, or at least
even that they would get away with it if they were communicating to the public, because then they could say, but we've just put your pay up by this amount, which more than, even if you take the bus, more than covers it, and you get extra besides, so you're still up on the deal. So, but they're not doing that.
Yes.
Like, if they did, like someone's just said, Starmer should go to report, but that's what they could do. Like, he's got a YouTube channel. He obviously thought it's important to do it. He's just doing it very badly. You know, he could do a video where he says, and he could do it like Jack and Ori almost. So there's like, or play school for politics play school, he could call it,
sit there with
where
a
he
big
just
book.
Explains things. Because the thing is, if Keir Starmer does a video,
like, the story.
You know, you've got all these populist people who are attracted to populism, interested in grooming gangs. So it's like, great. So if he does a video on it, it'll get flagged up to those people. Some of those people will watch, and why wouldn't they listen to Keir Starmer talking about it? So he can then say, oh, so here is what some people are calling for.
Yeah.
Well, I've got good news for them because the inquiry's already taken place.
Woo!
Let me, you can read it for yourself. Here's a link, but let me go through some of the key points. He could do like a 10-minute video on that where he keeps plugging what he did as Director of Public Prosecutions as well. And that would turn into a huge PR boost for him. But it would only happen if he kept doing content like that every now and then, or had other people do content on that channel of his. So he built up a big audience, and I don't understand why they'll be complaining about the way the media reporting all the time, I guarantee. And it's like, so why aren't you presenting your unfiltered message directly to the public then, you idiots? Yeah. And it keeps coming back to this. I am convinced now that what's happened is, so Labour had a YouTube channel, but they it was very sporadic. They didn't know what they were doing. So then Keir Starmer says, right, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll do my own. We'll start it from scratch. We'll do it properly. He's put a couple of people in charge of it or something. I don't know how he's done it. And then he's gone, oh, it's not getting many views. YouTube's obviously rubbish for engaging with the public. And then they're looking at other political parties finding the same thing. Oh, it must be crap for political parties. It's no, it's political parties are shit. If you look at Nigel Farage, he's doing really well. He gets views on YouTube. Yeah. He's got his own, and I don't just mean GB News. Like GB News will be giving him loads of views on the stuff they're presenting for him. Yeah. But his own personal YouTube channel gets views. Yeah. So they're being left behind. There was a time when Corbyn first became leader, Labour actually engaged pretty well with the social media game, and they were getting ahead of the Tories, and then they just stalled. Yeah, and now they haven't gone any further. But you could look at it and the Conservatives aren't deriving any advantages either. But Nigel Farage he's using social media. Yeah.
Well, this is something that's been said in the chat. Matthew G pointing out very correctly, the left wing need to appear on podcasts. They're mostly filled with right wing commentators. And Starmer did really well on the James O'Brien podcast, has been pointed out by Matthew as well, because he just came across really well in that. Whereas when he's making a speech, he always sounds a little bit stunted, a little bit.
He's not an orator.
No, he's not. The connection's not there between him and his audience. Whereas if it's a conversation like a podcast, that seems to be more natural, a natural place for him. But there's no reason why you can't do a podcast and film it and then put it on YouTube and also have it available as a podcast for people to listen to. But yeah, the fact that we've talked about this so many times. There's so many things that Labour could be doing with the free things that are available with YouTube, which is free to use. Anyone can make a video, put it on YouTube. We can do it live. We can have live conversations going on the screen. We can have Phil Googling while we are going out live. It doesn't matter. The tech is there and it doesn't cost anything. You get OBS software. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. And so the idea that they've got to have a studio set up and they've got to do this and that and the other, it's bollocks. It's just, it's infuriating.
It makes it worse. It's not just that it's unnecessary. You're actually paying to make your content worse. Because I keep going on, there's a report that YouTube brought out recently where they did a massive study into what attracts people, and they did brain scans and everything. So they didn't just do surveys where they asked people questions. They monitored people's brains to see what sort of stuff was hitting their pleasure centers, I suppose. And one of the big things that comes out of it is authenticity. And the problem is when you produce what is clearly contrived corporate bullshit with the videos, there's a certain style, which, yes, you put out on the BBC for your party political, sure. Yeah. But for social media, it lacks that authenticity because it's clearly contrived. Yeah. So, and that's huge. And that's what a lot of people on social media need to understand. Authenticity, YouTube have come out with it, but it'll be the same for all social media platforms. Authenticity is absolutely crucial. Yeah.
It's got to feel like you're chatting to a friend. That's what it's got to feel like instead of being addressed by the schoolmaster, which is how it comes across.
Even if not, if the person talking to you is like speaking from the heart, saying what they really think, rather than just trying to plug a message.
Yeah. Yeah, but
So-
even when I listen to or see TikTok videos by scientists explaining science, that they are enthusiastic about it. They're excited about this new thing, and they want to tell you about it in their own words. And it doesn't come across like a newsreader reading a piece about what's happened in the news that they just don't, in some country you've never heard of that they don't really care about. They're just reading off the auto cue. And this is something that politicians should be able to do. It should be in their toolkit, even if they're not a great orator, which I can understand. Most people who didn't go to private school aren't great orators, because we weren't taught oratory in our schools, or cricket. Well, did you do cricket in your school? You went to Yorkshire,
Not
didn't you?
very much.
Yorkshire.
And given that the wicket was made of concrete, you didn't really learn much.
Oh, okay. Was it just like a wall with a wicket?
No, it was just literally a strip of concrete in part of the field.
Oh my
That
God.
was the wicket, and then there were holes drilled into it to stick the stumps in. So you didn't really. So although, like, I was actually saying this the other day, because one of my private streams went just into sport, and I was saying at school, like, I was on the rugby team, the school rugby team, but we didn't play very well because all we were ever taught was the rules of the game. We were never taught tactics.
Yeah, yeah.
I knew a few in rugby union because I used to watch rugby union, so I would listen to commentary, so you pick up things. But that's no good in a team sport if no one else knows anything.
Yeah.
All anyone on my team knew was if you pick up a ball and run towards the sticks with it. That was it. There was, in that rugby, and you're watching professional rugby or even amateur rugby, and you've got one of the forwards with the ball. You've got this lovely like goose formation, and they can pass it down the line.
Yeah.
This did not occur in my team. Everyone was running around like headless chickens. If you ran into trouble with the ball, if you could see anyone you knew to pass it to, then that was a good day.
Gallifreyan Wren says it's all very tiring. The right-wing hate machine screams on, and the people who are meant to be halting the advance are either silent or appear to be helping. Looking at you, Streeting and Kendall. Well, when I think about sort of, there was someone who put something on Blue Sky the other day about how the right wing are always just trying to generate outrage all the time. Rather than try and correct their mistakes, wouldn't it be? Do you think it'd be an option to just farm some outrage for ourselves? Like, shouldn't we be outraged about 14 years of Tory failure? Shouldn't we be outraged about Boris Johnson putting his daughter and/or lover in the House of Lords? Shouldn't we be outraged about the VIP lanes, the trust budget, which was just astronomical and cost people? Like, we don't. We don't milk it as much as the other side do.
But the people you want to bring on side get put off by it. And this is what Labour did, and it's where they went wrong, because they went full time stoking the outrage of the black hole and the state that the Tories left the country in, and there was none of this. But this is what we're going to do to make your lives better, or at least where it was, they were whispering it. And that's what they need to do. You need to have them emphasising the good times to come, not the shit. Like, the public know the times were shit. That's why they voted. The Conservatives got their worst ever result in literally, like, what is it, 2.5 centuries of existence or more?
Yeah.
So it's their worst result ever. Yeah, the public know they messed up, right?
Yeah.
You mention it now and then, sure, like, keep it as background noise, but don't make it your main message. Your main message is how you're going to make it better. It's no wonder that Labour are struggling in the polls when their message is, because it's almost like, because there are people who are not following the whole message, they're just getting little bits of it. And you can understand how someone who's only casually observing politics now is getting the impression from Labour that, things are going to carry on being bad, but it's the Tories' fault. It's like, no, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear that it's getting better. And it's like, and Labour are saying that things are going to get better, and in this Parliament, they're just not saying it enough to be heard by everyone.
But don't you think that, like, these can be used as an opportunity for promoting Labour, Starmer, what they've done, and also having a dig at the Tories all at the same time?
Yes.
When they respond, like you just said, we should have Starmer going on and saying, well, when I was Director of Public Prosecutions, I actually instigated the report into this, and then the report was published and the Tories did bugger all about it. Aren't they crap? But, we're actually going to take that report and we're actually going to do something about it.
Yes,
we don't need the report. We need effective governance.
That's what they should do. I was saying to my wife earlier, I mean, because I was selling to her because her mother reads all the Tory stuff. So every week she comes out with some latest bollocks. So I said, I think I can predict what the bollocks is going to be this weekend. And, but, I say, so what you do, rather than just going straight, I mean, Labour might authorise another inquiry just because it becomes a political hot potato again. But rather than that, what would be better is to say, what we should do is implement the recommendations from the report that actually already exists. You might not realise, because neither the Conservatives nor the Reform UK gobshites bothered to mention it at the time.
Yeah.
Because it didn't give them the results they wanted. Because it says that actually, proportionally, it's white people who are committing these, out of proportion to the number of white people in the country.
Yeah.
People say, oh, that's because most people are white. Yeah, out of proportion to that. The proportion of white people committing these crimes is greater than the proportion of white people in the country.
Also,
by definition, that the key perpetrators are white.
Yeah. And by definition as well, immigrants to this country, first generation immigrants, are less likely to commit crimes. And you think, well, why is that? Why might that be? Because they'll get deported if they do. Whereas most people born here, they know the worst that can happen is they'll go to jail, but they won't be sent back to a country that they don't want to live in and they don't know anyone who lives there. So actually immigrants cause less crime and also give more in tax overall. They're net beneficiaries to our tax system, whereas the likes of me, I don't think I'm a net beneficiary to the tax system.
I would argue something else as well, because they're always going about, these firms should integrate more. I would say it's because of their integration, because when you read that report that already exists, the key factor that comes out of victims is their vulnerability. A hell of a lot of them, which comes as no surprise, they didn't just fall into a grooming gang situation. They were already abused by family members or other authority figures. So they're already vulnerable in their own homes and in their own lives. So they've been conditioned to vulnerability. So vulnerability is the key thing. Whereas I would argue that a lot of immigrant communities, because you're going to feel a bit like vulnerable already going to a new country, so you're more likely to integrate anyway.
Yeah.
So that integration and that sort of stronger sense of community is better able to protect people.
Yeah. We've got a question that's come in, but first of all, if Robin Moore is watching, thank you so much for the super chat that arrived this morning after I had finished the show. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay, so it might have been before for you, but it was after the show for me. And Robin said the serious issue of the misuse of disused tissues. Thanks, Robin. Don't know what that was in reference to, but thanks very much for that. And Nick and Diff is asking, what's the solution to fixing Labour's comms? What can we do? And I'm feeling like, well, trying to talk to people in Labour about this is like shouting at a brick wall. But would it be a more sensible thing for us all to get together and actually have some kind of concerted plan to lobby Labour to get better at what it's doing?
Yeah, your best bet is probably via your MP, if you've got a Labour MP, or Labour councillors. Because the problem is, in general terms, with Labour MPs and councillors, as we've seen again today, is they're too much on the defensive. They're not coming out swinging either. Yeah. I have a very dim view of MPs. I've said for a long time, not just Conservative.
Yeah, well, this is why I'm thinking that it might be more effective for a lobby group to actually professionally telling them this is what you need to do.
You've already tried that.
No, but not
through to their social media team. And
yeah, but that's their social media team. I'm talking about lobbying MPs to say, we would like you to do this and that and the other, because the right do that all the time. The oil companies, Saudi Arabia and Musk and all that lot, they all do that. We don't. We just go, we'll write to our MP and that'll fingers crossed something will happen. But yeah,
if a lot of people do it, it will happen. So the idea is to coordinate people in your area.
Yes.
And you can either all write your own letters but make sure it's in your own words, or just do multiple signatures. If you get someone, let's say you can get a group of you together and one of you is clearly a literary genius, get them to pen the letter, and then get like 100 people to sign it with their postcode and everything to demonstrate their constituents.
Yeah.
That's
a
so
really
that
good
sort
idea,
of thing we can get a response. You get I keep
It's organisation,
remembering
though,
back
isn't
in 2020 when Boris Johnson was attempting to nick to during the COVID, and people going, well, we need to make sure kids in poverty are looked after here, and they wanted to continue the free school meals basically, and Boris Johnson said no, he said we can't afford it. And this was Conservative MPs were saying that they were getting several hundred emails about it, and that to them represented a massive concerted public backlash. So if several hundred emails on a subject gets MPs to take action, then that's your marker. Get several hundred. If you can get, if you can't, you can't. If you can only get 20 people to sign it, get 20 people to sign it. But try and get, a letter together that is backed by, if you can get it backed by several hundred constituents, and if that can happen across, the odd MP can ignore it, but if you can do that across the country, then that will have an effect.
Yeah. We've got a super chat come in. Thank you very much to Gareth T. That's very kind of you, £5. Labour need an Alistair Campbell. He had PR off to a T. One of the reasons why Labour did so well in 97 and 01. Happy New Year to you both, by the way. Thank you, Gareth, and Happy New Year to you too, mate. They need an Alistair Campbell. Do you know who they could have as an Alistair Campbell? Alistair Campbell.
See, in terms of their social media, I would. He's not in Labour anymore, but in terms of social media, I would definitely bring him in. What I would say is Alistair Campbell absolutely was. The term spin doctor came in basically because of him. But it was different times then, and I do worry about the Arsene Wenger aspect to this.
Okay, explain that to non-football fans.
For football fans. So when Arsene Wenger came and started managing Arsenal, he turned them into an absolutely awesome football team within a few years. And then, but by the end of his time managing Arsenal, they did all right. They were all right, and they were never a huge club, but they were never. It was long since they could ever have dreamed of winning again. Because in my view, what Wenger did, he came in and he introduced all these innovations, like not letting his players eat Mars bars famously, and turned them into a brilliant force. But then other people cottoned on, adopted the same techniques, and then had their own innovations. And he got stuck in the mud. He thought, no, this is what works because it worked at one time, and he kept up with it, and he didn't carry on innovating. So my worry with Alistair Campbell, he was a spin doctor at a time where we were only just starting to get this like 24/7 news cycle. It wasn't really like it is now. The social media wasn't really like it is now. So he might have absolutely kept up with the times, but he may fall back on what works then that doesn't work now.
But he's a lot more popular now than he was. People absolutely hated him 25 years ago, but now they're like, he does that podcast with that posh bloke.
Yeah, but that's why I would say he should inform their social media, because if there's one thing he's got proven ability on in the here and now, it is reaching an audience on social media.
Yeah.
So I would definitely get him involved in that.
Yeah. You said he's not part of Labour anymore. I know that he got kicked out, but did they not let him back in?
Well, he hasn't applied to go back in.
Okay. So he got kicked out for saying that he voted for the Lib Dems in a local election, and they kicked him out.
It was the European election where basically Labour had told him to, effectively, because they said, well, we want to leave the EU as well, at which point 2019, if we could leave the EU at any month, it's not like Labour's position at the time was encouraging them to vote Labour. Yeah. But also, it wasn't against the party rule. Now, you can't obviously campaign against Labour, but if it's after the election, you say, oh, yeah, I voted this other way.
Kate Hoey.
That's not against the party rules.
Kate Hoey.
Whereas
Kate
Hoey, who was actively campaigning for Nigel Farage,
an actual MP.
She was ridiculing Jeremy Corbyn. So the Corbynites have got no reason to back her, and he refused to take the whip off her.
Yeah. Because he was a strong and thoughtful leader. Anyway, Maggie Pie, thank you very much for the 20 sweetest krona. Letters to MPs, how Brexit has swayed MPs. Yeah. And Ivan, thank you very much for the £10 super chat, mate. Happy New Year. Musk has nothing but contempt and disdain for the British people for our election result in July. I may use more choice words when I discuss Musk in private. Yeah, Ivan. I mean, the fact that he has more than once called for a new election because he didn't like the results of the other election. He's not British. He's never lived here. He's got nothing to do with this country except some of the companies that he bought or, became the director of happened to trade in this country. And he's sitting there going, I'm going to dictate what the politics should be. Anyway, Witchy Goth, Women's March, 18th of January in cities nationwide. Thanks very much for the super chat there. And the rest on Politics UK on YouTube with Rory Stewart says MZ. Yeah, thanks very much for the super chat there, Witchy Goth. And Tim Knight is saying, I get what Phil's saying, but Campbell has a great mind for this stuff. You could even have him as a consultant to line up a new team and get his replacement if you wanted. I mean, just get him involved.
I would certainly get him involved because where political parties in general, but Labour are absolutely missing a trick is that they're just. You don't have to be beholden to the legacy media. Yeah. You can get your message directly to the public. Like already it is the case. GB News complain all the time. They'll go to a press conference. He don't ask him he don't ask them to ask a question. Yeah. Because you're not serious, mate. He could do that with the rest of them. Yeah. He could say to them, look, you can come along from your press conference. But, he could just say, I'm just going to ask some questions here. He could, just get your stuff through on social media. You don't need the media. And then if you've done that and you've established that line of communication with the public via social media, because remember, it's not just the people who use social media. They have friends who don't use social media. So you present your message to them. They will pass it to other people they know. That's how it works.
People love to share social media stuff. They'll see something on the social media and they go, that's funny, that's interesting. I think people need to know this, and they will share it. They will do the hard work of PR always used to be getting your message out. You could write a press release, but if they didn't run the story, then you didn't get your message out. You were completely reliant on the sub-editors at the local newspaper or wherever. Now you can get people for free to do the work that people used to get paid Brewsters for, to spread the message.
They want to ask themselves why, if I look on GB News, on their YouTube stuff where they clip stuff, I mean, I think that Pound Shop Jesus is now only on their YouTube channel, is it? Because he gets into trouble with the broadcasting rules. But GB News just put out loads of little clips of stuff, a few minutes here, a few minutes there. Most of them don't get anything, but then every now and then, something goes mad. Like, yesterday, 20 Labour councillors quit as rebel leader sends feisty message to Keir Starmer, 179,000 views. Like, there's Labour.
What was their beef? Was that Gaza? Were they Corbynites?
No, I think it's just the general direction of stuff. So I haven't read the details. I can only assume they have a problem with him boosting funding to tackle homelessness, boosting the minimum wage and public sector pay, boosting funding for the NHS. I'm assuming that they're against that for some reason.
Tell us what you really think.
But nonetheless, the point is they put out a load of this stuff. Now I'm going to have a little look on Social Blade here because, you clip all these things together.
GB News' owner's hedge fund collapse, says Benjamin. Did it? Paul Marshall, was that? Did his hedge fund collapse? Did someone hedges his hedge fund? Hate it when my hedge fund gets hedged. Darren Jones is really good on camera and dealing with right-wingers and the media and press, just saying, says one angry pagan. Yeah.
They've got several characters that are good.
Yes.
But like GB News regularly getting over 50 million views a month. And, that is... And one person can't do that because it's like they're putting out shitloads every day.
Yeah.
But Labour have got a lot of people that can just contribute little things to it. Yeah. And they should just do that and clip loads of things. And most of them will get nothing. But if you get some decent ones on, like every now and then, even if you don't have a regular audience, something will just like attract attention. And people will watch it. Like, as I say, GB News, there's things here, got like yesterday 3,000 views. I couldn't put anything out that would get as low as 3,000 even now with a hit.
But I mean,
but then you've got other ones that will get hundreds of thousands of views.
So Farouk, who always clips up stuff on YouTube, on Twitter.
Yeah,
Labour should employ him to say every time there's a Labour MP and they say something good or funny or a Tory makes a tit of themselves, and it goes on the Labour Party the site. Like,
yeah, but they should have so you don't need that many people. So you could employ. You don't need to get someone who's doing it for themselves anyway. You can just employ someone to do that. Yeah. Just watch all the TV pro and clip them. I mean, he does that. Haggis UK is another one who does that. Is really good. Yeah. There are a few people who do that. Labour could just employ their own person to do that, and I would hire a couple of people to do like other social media content. And I keep saying you only need 2 people to do multi-platform stuff. You don't have to do it every day. It don't have to be like twice a day like me. I said, actually, they'd be better off using the Jimmy the Giant format where he produces like something off. It's about once every 10 days, one thing, but it gets loads of views. And they only need a couple of people to do it. They need someone who's good at the tech side of it. And they need someone who's good at the public interest side of it, who's really good at coming up with stuff that there's that I can spin that really well. 2 people with those skills covering it, and several times a week on all of your platforms. You can adapt it for the different platforms. You put it out across different platforms. You will build an audience, and on YouTube, because you can monetize it, it can be effectively self-funding. Once you've grown big enough. So it doesn't even cost you anything. And it's a way of also eliciting donations. It's like every now and then when you put out this is what we've just done, or if you want to help support us a bit more, this is how you can join the Labour Party or donate to the Labour Party. And they could do that. And they're just not doing. And I'm convinced it's because they don't realise the potential. Because the people they've got to do it, it's like, oh, but we did this thing. It was all really posh, and it was really high production value, so you don't get any views. YouTube's shite. It's like, no, you are. Yeah, you are shite.
Yeah. Ivan Ambrose, thank you very much for the super chat there. LBC should get rid of Suella Braverman. Her program yesterday was yet again a disaster.
Oh, where am I going to get my material from?
Abhorrent rhetoric combined with embarrassment. Yeah, but it's all. Thanks very much for the super chat, Ivan. But it's all engagement. That's all they care about. They just want engagement. And they know that a clip of her saying that they're putting up a fucking wall between Italy and a country that is literally 1,000 miles away from Italy, separated by 2 different seas. Like, I just, yeah.
But I'll tell you what I don't understand, in all honesty, though.
Go on.
Because she covers for James O'Brien, doesn't she?
Yes, occasionally.
Why?
Occasionally. But Jeremy Hunt's covered for him today.
Yeah, I don't get that, because I can get it like LBC. I mean, it's not a very broad range, is it? Like, no. But they have a range of views, mostly along the right wing.
Yes.
I don't think they have. Do they have any properly left wing? I mean,
no.
James O'Brien is progressive, but he's not. He was centre left, maybe. Do they have any real proper left wing presenters?
No.
So anyway. But nonetheless,
they had Sangita. They had Sangita Maiska.
I don't know what her economic politics is, though. In all honesty, because I don't listen to her. Yeah. But anyway.
she's very left wing, and she's a state school kid.
Okay.
unlike most of the people on.
But she's not there anymore.
They elbowed her. They kicked her out. So she's not allowed to say why.
Yeah. Well.
Funny that.
Yeah. Anyway, James O'Brien is probably the closest thing, and yet. So he's the most progressive voice they've got on LBC, and they decide to cover him with Suella Braverman. That's like, how does that make sense? Because surely he builds up a certain audience.
Yes, none of whom will listen to Suella Braverman.
Why wouldn't you get someone who speaks to the same audience?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Gareth says, just Owen Jones, who's a gobshite. He's not on LBC, is he?
He's not on LBC, no.
I don't think so.
I don't watch it religiously, but I'm pretty sure I'd notice. Like, I do occasionally see LBC clips. I've never seen one from him.
Yeah. Svak says, I think Cruella might have said it intentionally to spread her message wider. We laughed at her geographic incompetence while someone worried about migrants, herd, wall and military. Yeah.
But I mean, the point I was trying to make is, okay, so let's say this thing exists. I mean, people were surmising she probably meant the Greek-Turkish border, where there is a fence there, which you can call a wall. It's made of steel, not brick, but it's, you can call it a wall. And, so you think, well, maybe that's what she meant. But it's like, but what's the point? And I still don't know what the point she was trying to make is. Is she trying to say this is somehow applicable to an island? Because she's talking about security at a land, and she used the term land border herself. And it's like, but we're an island.
Yeah.
Where are we going to build our wall?
Do they have a fence between Turkey and Romania? Sorry, Bulgaria. Christ almighty, my geography's suffering now. There is a bit of a border between
I think there might
Bulgaria
be one around
Turkey. It's not very long.
I don't know. I really don't know what she was going on about.
I don't think there's a wall there. I see no wall.
There is in Greece. There is, to be fair, in Greece.
Yeah.
And it is patrolled by police officers. There's not loads, because like I said in my video, if you've got a good wall, you don't need like battalions of soldiers.
Yeah.
Because you've got a pissing wall. You only need enough security to manage your access points. And that's only for checking visas and stuff.
We've got people talking about Ollie Dugmore, but then Scott is pointing out that Graham wouldn't be happy. Private school mafia again. Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, mate. Natasha Devon is fairly on the left.
Who that is?
Natasha Devon.
No, Ollie Dugmore.
Ollie Dugmore. He's on Politics Joe.
Oh, right. Okay.
But he's also on LBC now. He's doing stuff on LBC. Ivan Ambrose. Natasha Devon is fairly on the left, but she's only on LBC once a week. That's true. And I follow her. I follow her on Thread. She's quite good. And Maggie Pie, thank you very much for the 20 Swedish krona. Not being a racist Brexit gobshite is progressive. Well, it's a start. I guess.
I mean, progressive surely just means you actually want things to get better.
Garrett's telling me there is a fence between Bulgaria and Turkey, so there you go. Now you know. There's a fence. Anyway, sorry, Phil, what were you saying?
So progressive surely is just you want things to get better for more people. So if you promote the idea that people should have a better standard of living or more rights, that's progressive.
Yeah.
It's not a complicated thing to describe.
Yeah.
So if you are arguing for people to have their rights removed or a lower standard of living, then you are regressive.
Nick and Diff is saying, I used to like Politics Joe, but they come across as sanctimonious bumholes now. I hope we don't come across as sanctimonious bumholes on this channel. We try not to. I don't know if you always succeed. But yeah, it's yeah. Anyway, Anthony Fisher thinks that Suella Braverman was talking about a turkey farm having a border in Italy. Which reminds me a bit of Blackadder. You know, he says how the war started. He says Archie Duke shot an ostrich because he was hungry. Russell Cannon, Ollie Dugmore is on LBC in the middle of the night when not many are listening. And Scott is saying, this is brilliant YouTube content, guys. Top watch. Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you. But yeah, I enjoy the conversational style. I enjoy doing, not just that it's easier to do live stuff like this where we interact with the audience, but I prefer doing this because it's a conversation rather than just me talking to the screen and talk to the camera about, what's going on. I've written a speech that you must listen to. So yeah, I prefer doing this. I just wish it was more lucrative. Ollie is part of the mafia. Her explains a lot. Actually, I don't actually know if I've added Ollie to the private school mafia list because I don't know if I sussed out where he went, and I don't like putting unknown as where someone went. I've done that on a couple of people who I know went to private school, but I don't know where they went. A couple of them are my friends. I should actually ask them, like, which schools did you go to, mate? I'll find out that.
Because I want to put you on my list of ridicule.
It's not a list of ridicule. It says at the top, like, I have no problem with people who went to private school. Now, we've got Ollie Robbins. He was a former senior civil service. He was a Brexit negotiator, Ollie Robbins. I haven't got Ollie, the other Ollie, Stan and Ollie. But yeah, I'll add them. No, it says at the top, this is not intended as a list of awful people. Some very good friends of mine were privately educated. So were some of my all-time heroes like Rick Mail, Amano Annucci, and Philip Pullman, to name a few. So there you go. It's not about them. It's about the system.
Like George Orwell, who tried to warn us about them, and instead his works just became like manuals for the populace.
Yeah.
Because no one bothered to read them and think, oh, this is a bit of a warning.
What kind of like surveillance state, 1984, and
So that's why,
Big
I mean,
Brother
that's the
watching
problem
you.
I really
Alexa,
have with a lot of populists.
watch me.
is
Listen
when,
to me.
is when populists have the nerve to quote Orwell as if they're pointing out someone else. It's like, no, he was warning about you, you dickhead.
Yeah, that is a bit funny. Well, I mean, people getting The Matrix wrong. I mean, The Matrix was written by now two transgender women, and a part of the subtext of the whole movie was about, you know, changing who you were. And they had a character in the original script called Switch, who was male outside of the Matrix, but female in the Matrix, or vice versa. And they were told to take that out by the studio because it was too revolutionary. But yeah, people quoting The Matrix,
not that revolutionary.
people quoting Fight Club, which was written by a gay man about toxic masculinity, and they're like, yeah, Fight Club, yeah, it's all about being a man. It's like, no, it's not. It's about having mental health problems and not being able to cope with life because of this all-encompassing toxic masculinity of the way that the world expects you to behave.
World of Warcraft has effectively, in its own weird way, a trans character that's been there from year dot. But I bet you a lot of people who play it don't realise.
World of Warcraft?
Because in World of Warcraft, dragons are a thing, but also it's quite difficult for a big old dragon to have a conversation with just like a normal person because they're quite big. So they adopt like humanoid personas. And one of the most famous in it is a female gnome. So when she's amongst the mortals, she's a female gnome. But it's actually a male dragon.
Ah, well, there you go.
Who just decided to adopt the form of a female gnome. Which is the closest thing. It's sort of, in a fantasy way, a weird sort of trans thing. But a lot of people who play it won't actually realise.
There's an episode of Black Mirror about that, wasn't there? Where was it Anthony Mackie? It's an anthology series by Charlie Brooker, and it's all about technology and how it'll change our lives in the future. And some of the things that they came up with like 10 years ago are now actually happening in places. And one of them was a character who wanted to play video games, but when he was in the video game, he would always play as a woman. And he ended up having sex with this guy all the time. And then they met in real life, and he was like, no, I'm not interested in this. I only need to do it when I'm a woman. And it was like, yeah, I mean, who's it harming? Who's it harming? Martin, out of sync. I'm on catch up. My partner is an intermediary worker with the police and courts. In abuse cases, it's horrendous. And like you say, abuse is mostly within the home, which is very true. One of the things that I read this week that Labour are doing is that the so-called Nightingale courts, because they're taking over conference rooms in hotels and stuff to get through this backlog of court cases. They're going to be extended till 2028, I think, because there's just so much stuff to get through. Yeah. Striking Vipers, that was the name of the episode. Thank you very much, Andy F. And like things like that, it feels like Labour are doing the quietly competent things, but they have this torrent of abuse leveled against them for everything they do, and they I don't know the way out of it. The way
I look at it is they're taking the business of government seriously, but they're not taking politics seriously.
Ooh, that's an interesting.
It's like they think to themselves, they've done the politics because they're now in government. So now their work in government will be what impresses people. But unless the people see the link between what you've done and improving living standards, they won't.
Yeah.
So you have to keep telling them what you're going to do. It's no, because what happens in a few years' time if Keir says, oh, this is now brilliant and better and something, and the Tory press turned around and said, yeah, but that was always going to happen because of this like spurious thing.
Yeah.
And people don't believe him.
Yeah.
So he's got to keep saying, we're going to do this. You're going to notice this. You're going to notice this. You're going to notice this. So that when they do, they can say, well, this is what we've been working on. I've been telling you for years.
Yeah. I just feel like they should be. I mean, I'm not expecting Labour in the first few months of office to suddenly, be doing fantastically well, especially after 14 years of toying this rule.
They have their budget hasn't been implemented yet. Their legislation's still going through Parliament. Yeah. There's almost nothing they can do until all that's done.
Well, there is, Phil, because they've gone out their way to ban puberty blockers for teenage kids who are trans. Yeah. Not teenage kids who are cis. They can still get them because they're safe. So they're taking this safe therapy off the market, out of the reach of anyone, because you're not even allowed to get it privately anymore. but only if you're trans. If you need it because you're cis, then you can still get this medicine. So it's not as though it's deadly or anything like that.
Oh, no, that whole thing is
and they went out their
so
way to do this,
unscientific.
Phil. They can't say, oh, we haven't got time to do X, Y, Z. We've got to concentrate on getting the
that's not what I was
fundamentals
suggesting.
right.
What I'm saying is they just think that their work in government is all... It's like they realised they needed to do politics in opposition. But now they're in government, they think, well, now we're just going to deliver. And they think they can just abandon the politics.
Yeah. But they're pissing off the base. I mean, I mean, obviously the Mail and the Express and the Telegraph are going to hate them, whatever. And all the gammon who love the Gammon Box News are going to hate them. But they're pissing off the people who voted for them. And I think that's kind of unforgivable at this point. People who were willing to give them the benefit of the doubt are running out of patience, and some people I know are just given up entirely and gone.
There's a lot of people who are. That's impatience is the top issue. A lot of people don't realise that it takes because they don't.
No, Phil. I agree. I agree that these are the people who say yes, I would be patient. However, I don't understand why Streeting had to rush through this particular bill it wasn't a bill, but this moratorium on puberty blockers for a minority of a minority of a minority of people who actually need it, and he's taken it away and given us shit responses for it. And when he was asked about it in Parliament, he was so shit and smug about it, and every single transphobe in Parliament voted for this fucking measure. Like, everyone else is sitting there going, what the hell, guys? So it's not about being patient. I mean, they're making some really, really bad missteps that are alienating the people who voted for them.
They're making a few missteps.
Yeah, but they're big enough to stop people from voting for them.
That one's not, but some of the others are. But the point will be, it's the missteps that are getting all the attention.
Yes.
And then, because I can rattle off a whole series of things. They've hugely boosted the funds to tackle homelessness. They're massively increasing the number of affordable homes that's going to be built. They're banning no-fault evictions. All of those things make homelessness in the future much less likely.
Yeah.
They've boosted funding for the NHS. They've boosted funding for public sector pay awards. Junior doctors get a much bigger correction. Minimum wage is going up by well above the rate of inflation. Workers' rights will be coming online. So when that's in place this year, there will be an implementation period as well. But by the end of this Parliament, workers will have much stronger rights, which will also give them, and because unions will also have fewer restrictions on them, they'll be able to strike much better pay deals than is currently the case. So there's a lot of good stuff happening. Yeah. It's just they're not no one else is going to draw attention to it, and they're not doing it themselves.
Yeah.
So instead, what's being drawn attention to is all the stuff that they're getting wrong.
Yeah.
Or that people feel they're getting wrong. In the case of the winter fuel payments, it's like there's some people think one way, some the other, but nonetheless, it's been presented as a negative thing. There's none of but we're using the money to boost the NHS.
Oh, wow. Phil, a few things just happened. So, first of all, Wayne, thank you very much for the £10 super chat, mate, saying, Happy New Year. This side needs funding. Are you aware of Simon Squibb and his funding for good causes? Please take a look. I was a totem-wielding Tauren in World of Warcraft a long time ago. And then we've got Maggie Pie, 50 Swedish krona, a guy who got corny watching Leisure Forever, which is a film about prostitution and human trafficking, and ends with the protagonist unaliving herself. Jesus. And then Sfax has gifted 50 politics social memberships. Thank you so much, Sfax. That is absolutely awesome. We're gonna have a few extra people on the on the old Discord server tonight. So thank you very much. Tim Nat has got a membership. Ian McKenna Keller, Gillian Hope, Pete Haggard, Roger. Oh my God, there's got to be 50 up. Thank you very much, Sfax. That is very, very kind of you. I noticed that the words are coming up really small on the screen there because the formatting, that's how big the screen would look. That's how big the letters would look if I let it. I've got to do a little bit of CSS coding for that, which I will do. I will do after the show. But thank you so much, Sfax, for that. It's really kind of you. And hopefully this can be the base that we grow our community out of on Discord with an extra 50 people. Fantastic. This is going to get me back on Discord, Phil. It's going to have to. With membership, you get access to the Discord server, the Politics Social Discord server, which is a lot of fun. David Smith, Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Happy New Year. Do Labour need to be more gloves off with Farage stroke reform? Them and Musk's Southport conspiracy innuendos are playing with fire. Yes. Well, I think yes. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think they need to counter it a lot more. I can understand dancing around specifically Musk, but not the talking points. You know, they should. He should be ridiculing Farage at every point. They should be calling out his inconsistencies. They should be calling out, you said this, now you're saying this. You know, calling out the fact that, I mean, again, they have to leave Musk out of it, because I would be very tempted to say, why on earth would Reform UK, why would you believe that they are representing British interests when they literally want to elicit all their funding from an illegal immigrant in America?
Yeah.
I know he's not an illegal immigrant there anymore, but he was.
Well, he was. And yeah, he's a bit of a bloody nightmare, to say the least. But yeah, I feel like Labour should definitely be a lot more heavy, you know,
and come down a lot more heavy
on this.
They could do it on their own social media platforms. They could do that. They could make a channel out of just, right, this is what the right-wing gobshites have said today. Here is actually the facts of the matter.
Yeah.
They could just do that several times a week, and it would do quite well.
Yeah, it would. It would be very good. Oh, actually, I'm trying to fix the tiny letters on here.
But we've asked how you become a member. So if you look under the video where it says Politics Social, next to it there's a join button. You just click join.
Yeah. Membership item. Is that it? Okay. Does that work? Does that change anything? Hey, I don't know if that worked. A frothy coffee from me. This is from at the Big Hon. Thank you very much, at the Big Hon. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for that, Big Hon. And also we've got Ivan Ambrose there with £5 super chats. I keep trying to get a YouTube membership on Politics Social, but I'm getting nowhere. Thanks very much for the super chat. And yes, if you click on the join, it should give you a membership thing. It's you might have just got one. You might have just got one for free, unless you already have one. But Ivan, I'll get you onto the server. I didn't realize you weren't on the Discord server, but we'll sort that out. Sorry, I was trying to sort a few things out there on the screen at the same time. But thank you so much to Sfax. That was incredibly generous of you for doing that. Obviously, we've been going on a little bit over time, and I've got to get going. Got to go pick the girls up. Phil, before we go, thank you very much for talking to us today. David W, welcome to level 1. As a member. We're going to get loads of these now. Everyone's going to get to level 1. But Gareth T saying, guys, got to sign off. Have a great day and check in later. Fomox Chicken saying, Streeting, Kendall and Reeves are the 3 members I don't trust. I don't mind Rachel Reeves so much, but
I wouldn't trust anyone. I wouldn't trust any politician.
Wound me up.
So it's usually safest, but you don't have to trust them. They're in government now. They'll either deliver or they won't.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll leave it at that. I'll be back at 9:30 tonight for the Politics Social Friday Night Social. So please join us for that. And another super chat coming from Wayne. Wayne, thank you. Cracker stroke dad joke. Who built King Arthur's Round Table circumference?
Very good.
Do you like that, Phil? Being a mathematician.
Good maths joke.
Good maths joke. Yeah. Anyway, so GC as well. Welcome to level 1. GC, I'll give you a super chat.
When I was at the Manchester in the maths building, someone who obviously has no respect for public property wrote on the back of the sort of cubicle toilet, mathematicians work it out with a pencil.
Hey, oh. Very good, very good. And on that bombshell, thank you very much for the super chats. Thanks for the chat. Thank you so much for Sfax for gifting 50 memberships. Ivan, I'll give you a texty after the show, and we'll try and sort out your membership so we can get that sorted for tonight. And Russell Cannon just says groan. Fantastic. So thanks very much, Phil. Thanks everyone for watching. Give us a like on the way out. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.